Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the UK Connection, and it is ranking the songs on a classic album day. Let me introduce my two comrades in arms, Steven Reid and Simon Bray. Good evening to you, gentlemen.
A good afternoon to you, Peter.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Good evening.
Yes. Thanks
Good
for watching.
day.
Good day, good evening, good morning, whenever you might be watching, right? Could be any time. The wonders of doing these things, right? It could be any time when people are watching. So we've got a fun show for you today. We are going to be ranking the songs of the album that changed my life. I think I've told this story millions of times here on the channel, so I won't do it again. But that album is Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Unfortunately, not an album that changed everybody's life, right, Simon?
No, it's like us. No.
But he does have
Break it to him. Break it to him gently, Simon.
But before we get into talking about and ranking the songs, we got 8 of them on this album. Let's talk about our beer selections for the day, and then the guys will have some information on chart positions, I think, and all that kind of good stuff. So, Simon, what you got today?
Well, as some people know, I went beer shopping last weekend. Yes, I did, and I picked up quite a lot of beer. To be fair, because it's the festive period, isn't it? Nearly Christmas. Ho ho ho. So the ones that I've actually selected is from the Salter Brewery in West Yorkshire. I never choose anything from Lancashire, actually. Where I'm actually from, do I?
I've noticed.
Probably rectify that. See if Mrs. Samuel let me have some more beer. I suspect not. But this is ho 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 White Christmas. Yeah.
Oh, Merry.
I've been dreaming of drinking this. Get it? Yeah. Since I got it. And great beer, of course, requires a great vessel. So I've decided to goblet it up. Yeah, so it's a blonde beer. You can't tell because I'm going all medieval on your ass, but yeah, there we go. White Christmas from Salter. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic.
I'm sure it will be. It sounds good.
It is.
Well, Simon's gone festive, so I haven't. I bought this. I was in a place called Dalbeattie with my work last week. So this is from their local brewery. I've been there before. This is from the Sulworth Brewery. And for anyone that doesn't know, this is Robbie Burns. This is Robert Burns here. Yes, I know that Burns Night's 25th of January or whatever it may be. Okay. But I hadn't had this one before. The other two that I bought when I was down was really good. This is The Grace. Okay. Naturally, the Selkirk Grace, believed to be written at the Selkirk Arms in, okay, can you see this word?
Yes.
Right.
Not going to try and say it.
We pronounce that Kirkcudbright.
Kirkcudbright.
Wow. Okay. Don't ask. Okay. By Robert Burns in 1794. So this is a 4.3%, and there's a whole load of blurb and nonsense on the side where it talks about Galloway sunsets and Maris otters and. But it looks like this. Here's one I poured earlier. Does that look like a Galloway sunset? I don't know. It looks
like looks like an iced tea. It looks like what I drink every day.
Doesn't smell like that, thankfully.
I'm sure it does.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah.
Now I want to reread the blurb because it's really good. Really good. Very smooth. Really quite deep. That's lovely.
I gotta say, Stephen, I think the one word I love to hear you say the most is nonsense.
Nonsense.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute nonsense.
Love it. Love it.
Well, that's handy because I talk a lot of it.
All right, so I've been talking about all sorts of weird things in regards to beer over the last few weeks, and I think last week I did not partake, and I promised that I would come back with a vengeance this week. So I had a handful of things in my fridge, and I'm like, Do I want to pick the coconut pineapple beer? Do I want to pick the Indian lager? Do I want to pick this? Do I want to pick that? And I'm saying, you know what? It's a Black Sabbath episode. So let's go with something a little on the dark side. Peanut butter milk stout. Nitro peanut butter milk stout.
Straight out of Satan's arsehole.
That's
yes,
right, exactly.
I was expecting something really metal sounding there.
Well, you know.
Peanut butter. Yeah.
By the Left Hand Brewing Company. Tony Iommi was a left-hand guitar player.
Nice. Nice.
I didn't plan that one. And it's interesting how it says nitro and it's not in a can with the nitro thing. So what they say to do is to do this. They literally give you instructions on the bottle to do what I just did.
Well, there you go. That is a perfect pour. That's a perfect pour.
Look at that. And I have it in my...
I was aghast at that because that usually means head like this.
Yeah, and perfect. It looks like a Guinness. Look at that. Look at that.
Oh, on the money.
Big notes of peanut butter and chocolate.
Yeah. If clapping wasn't so evil, I would have clapped at that.
Yes, because you don't want to piss someone off, right? So
no, you really don't want to do that, do
you? This is delicious. It is just peanut buttery enough, just chocolatey enough. It's not too sweet. It's not too bitter. And it's really smooth. Yeah, this is good. And I'm kind of lying. I've had like 4 of these already over the last couple of days. But, you know, it's just as good as the first time. So, yeah, cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers. How is the White Christmas, Simon? Is it good?
Brooklyn.
Very nice. Notice
please. That means we've all got a
I can just leave the goblet just there in the corner of the screen. Yes. How cool is that?
Yeah. Do you know what? That actually now looks like it's got a plant in it.
Yeah.
It does.
I don't feel like there's enough plants on this whatever it is. Mantelpiece? Not a mantelpiece.
It's the plant pot of doom.
Yes. Doom. Yes.
All right. So who's got some information on Paranoid before we get started?
On being on the album Paranoid, I've got some UK information. Yeah, the album peaked twice at number 8 in the UK in 1970, but I've gone for the first week that it peaked, which was the 10th of May. Well, 10th of May to 16th of May 1970. What's number 1, kids? Anyone care to guess? Give you a clue. My name is in the group's in the duo's name.
Simon and Garfunkel.
Simon and Garfunkel were number 1. Paul McCartney was number 2. Benefit from Jethro Tull. I think you'll find I've got that one.
That's a good album.
Yep, that was number 3. Andy Williams. 10 years after. Easy Rider soundtrack. Tom Jones. Black Sabbath. The England World Cup squad.
Oh,
and the soundtrack to Paint.
With an album. They had a full album.
Yeah. And the soundtrack to Paint Your Wagon. What an interesting top 10 that is. So much like classic stuff. Andy Williams, Tom Jones, and the England World Cup squad. Guess who else was hanging around at that point? Led Zeppelin, Beatles, Creedence, Clearwater Revival, Bloodwind Pig.
Wow.
Nice.
Nana Muscuri. See, we've got to find somebody that we can take the piss out of, haven't we? Did she make it across the pond, Peter? Greek's finest.
Absolutely.
No. Frank Zappa was in the top 20. Hot Rats.
Nice.
Weird variety of stuff. More Nana Muscuri, Moody Blues.
That was the early 70s, though. I mean, it's not surprising.
Glenn Miller. And bizarrely enough, the Glenn Miller album was called A Memorial, 1944 to 1969. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. He'd been dead for all that period. Yeah, didn't make too much in that period, did he? Being dead.
No, he'd have been not with us for most or all of that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah. The 70s were a weird place to be alive in the UK, weren't they? No sign of Aldo Unica, no David Soul. Sad times, but they were coming. They were both coming. So yeah, a mixture of crazy stuff. And the Sabbaths made it to number 8. That was the peak of this album. I noticed that I've certainly got the reissued 1976 version on them. It's not not the original.
That's the LP that I had back in the 70s as well.
I've got a names version as well. It's clearly not the same one. I have no idea what year it is. It was not bought new. This was not bought new. This has seen some action.
I see that.
Yeah, it's all split down. It's a shambles. Look at this. It's a paper copy of it.
Shambles. Totally.
Shambles. It's an absolute shambles. You're a shambles.
And I've got the remaster reissue from 2016, which is the multi-disc set. 2-disc set.
So, Stephen, tell me more.
It was released, yes, in September 1970 in the UK, but in the US, it was released on the 7th of January in 1971. So the UK originally was on Vertigo, and then Warner Brothers were the label that released it in the US. The album was produced by Roger Bain, who I think did the first 3 Sabbath albums, if I'm not mistaken. He's probably best remembered now for not necessarily getting the first Judas Priest album right. For want of a better term of phrase, lots of odd decisions were taken with that album, which he is now, shall we say, given credit for, which is the wrong turn of phrase. He did a lot of work with Vertigo at that point, worked with bands like Budgie, Barclay James Harvest, and then he seemed to just disappear. Considering the profile of the acts that he was working with and the profile of the label he was working with, he just seems to have gone. No idea what happened after that to him.
He had a reputation. He had a reputation for working kind of on the cheap and getting bands in and out of the studio very, very quickly. And I think as the 70s wore on, bands wanted to spend more time in the studio, not less. I think that had something to do with it.
It's easy to see that labels would like him, bands would not.
Right.
There you go. So yeah, the album peaked at number 12 in the US charts on March the 20th. It had been at number 13 for a good few weeks prior to that. It just seemed to stall, and then it stumbled over the line to number 12 for 1 week. And in that week, I've called it the Year of Love Story. 1971, the Year of Love Story. Because at number 2 in the US charts, was the original soundtrack to Love Story. At number 7 in the US charts was Andy Williams with Love Story. At number 26 in the US charts was Henry Mancini plays the theme from Love Story. And you think, that's a crazy amount of Love Story albums, until you realise that at number 55, Johnny Mathis is with you with Love Story. I mean, how much Love Story can you possibly need?
It was taking the US by storm.
Clearly it was. That's a ginormous amount of album sales for one kind of thing. That's crazy. So the rest of the top 10, Janis Joplin number 1 with Pearl. You had the Jesus Christ Superstar soundtrack at number, various artists thing at number 3. Chicago with Chicago 3 at number 4. Too confusing. They had 2 albums in the top 100. Lots of acts with more than 1 album in the top 100. Hendrix at number 5 with The Cry of Love. He had 2 albums in the top 100. Santana, he did as well. He had Abraxas at number 6. Then you had Elton John with Tumbleweed Connection, which I've learned this year is very good. Yes. He had 2 albums in the top 100. Number 9, George Harrison, All Things Must Pass, which is possibly my favourite Beatles solo endeavour. Barbra Streisand at number 10 with Stony End. Other things of note, you've got Creedence Clearwater Revival, Three Dog Night, Mountain with Nantucket Sleigh Ride, of course, Grand Funk Railroad, ELP with their debut album, Jefferson Airplane with The Worst of Jefferson Airplane. I do love that title. And Black Sabbath at number 63 with Black Sabbath. So they too had 2 albums in the top 100 in 1971.
Yep. And as far as certifications go, in the US, even though it peaked at number 12, Paranoid sold 4 million copies.
That's on reissues alone.
Yeah, I mean that's to date, right? But yeah, but it was definitely platinum plus at the time. UK gold, 100,000. Italy platinum, Germany 150,000. Canada platinum, 100,000 copies. Australia gold, 20,000. So it did really well, and Paranoid was a top 20 single on the US Billboard charts. Their only charting single in their entire history.
Am I not correct in saying that Ozzy has been quoted at points in mentioning that when they saw like teeny boppers dancing to Paranoid. They kind of went, let's not do any more singles. Oh, we're a serious band.
Yes, yes. No more of that.
I don't know why that was.
No more of that nonsense. Yeah, I mean, and that song is famous for, they basically had the whole album finished, but it was too short. So the producer said, you guys need another song. So get back in there and work something out. And like literally within an hour, they came back with Paranoid, recorded it, and it became their most well-known song. Go figure. Go figure. So we got 8 tracks on this album. So we'll do 3, 3, and 2. And we'll start off with Simon with 8, 7, and 6.
Yes, let's. Would you like the good news or the bad news?
Oh, I'd love the bad news.
It's not my favorite album.
So, is there good news?
I don't dislike it as much as I disliked Led Zeppelin 4.
Okay. That's good news.
It really is, isn't it? One of my major problems with this album is the singer, which is weird because I really like Ozzy's solo stuff. Nothing if not odd and hypocritical. I just not a fan of much of his work on here. So you might have thought that Rat Salad would be a lot further up, but it's not. No, it's my number 8, and I know when we did the Outlaws, Peter, and when we've done other stuff, I've said I really do like a nice instrumental just to put a little button on an album or part way through or anything. I don't really like much about Rat Salad. No, don't like it. Nope. There's drum solo in it like part way through. Why?
Because it's
I genuinely think that like Bill Ward's like the most valuable player on this record. I think he's really great. I really like his work, but no, just it's almost as if they thought, oh, God, we need to fill up some space before they invent CDs. Let's fill up some space on this vinyl, and here's Rat Salad. Just no. Nope. I was going to put Planet Caveman, Planet Caravan last. Maybe it would be better if it's no. I don't hate it as much as I thought. I thought I did. This is one of those albums that you listen to and you think, I don't like that. Like yourselves, chaps. I've got thousands of albums. Literally thousands. It's a real bone of contention in our household. How many albums has Simon got? Too many. When's he going to get rid of them? He's not. And it's quite difficult to go back. And I think, I'm going to really go for it. I'm going to listen to Paranoid or Led Zeppelin 4. So this is quite a useful exercise, but I still don't like Planet Caravan. It probably sounds great if you stoned out your tree or anything else like that. Probably a great idea at the time, but it's a bit no. It's not like anything else on the album because there's some really great shit on this. There really is, but just no, don't like it. Don't like it. I do in some way, shape, or form. Pretty much either like or really like everything else on the record to some extent. My 60s fairies wear boots. It might, if I was to continue listening to this album after we've done this, which I almost certainly won't because I now know that we're doing something next week. It might even go up higher. It's one of those that I thought, oh Christ, I really don't like this, but actually it swings like a motherfucker, doesn't it? It really does. It really, really does. And if I'd have had more time with listening to this for the first time, and I imagine 30 years. I've certainly had it since I was at school, and that was years ago. This might actually go up because it's really the swingy nature of it's really kind of getting to me. It's the one that you think, oh, I can't wait for this one to turn back up, because as always, put it on at the start, go to the end. It's got to be done. Yeah, so apart from I do think Rat Salad and Planet Caravan are relatively gobble gobble turkeys, but the rest of it I do quite like more than I thought. It's a good
That's good
journey
to
of
hear. It's good to hear.
Yeah, I'm pleasantly surprised by that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start in the same place as you have, Simon, because I think it is fascinating. As Peter mentioned, the famous story of Paranoid is it was knocked together in a matter of hours because there's room on the vinyl, guys. And yet Rat Salad was there first. That's kind of like, So that isn't the filler. Okay. Because it feels unfinished to me. That's the thing with Rat Salad, is I think there's some nice ideas in there. The main riff is really good in points, but it's almost like a car chase from a 70s movie in certain points as well, which is not necessarily a bad thing for me. I kind of like that sort of music, but it just seems pretty forgettable. However, I will stick up for Bill Ward and his little solo in this song because I think he's tremendous on it. I think he's absolutely killer on this song, and I think that is a theme of the whole album.
I feel like I said that. I just don't like solos in the middle of songs.
You did kind of say that, but it's got a drum solo. But yes, you did kind of.
So you did say that Bill was the MVP of the album, and
yes, you did. Yes, you did. And as I said to you on Twitter the other day, you're always correct, Simon.
Yeah, there is that.
And I'll also kind of back it up in a certain way as well, because this is an interesting album to do, because this probably, I've never done a Sabbath ranking of the album. I've never really even thought about what the ranking would be. This would probably fall quite low for me, Paranoid, in terms of ranking the whole catalogue. I prefer other eras over Ozzy's era in general, but this isn't even one of my favourite Ozzy era albums. So this has been an interesting process for me too, because number 7 for me is Paranoid. Yes, I know it reached number 4 in the UK singles charts, and I know it's probably the Sabbath song that most people know, whether they even like rock or metal or anything that vaguely connected to Sabbath. I've never really worked out the fascination for this song. We used to play it when I was in a covers band many moons ago, and it always went down a storm. That's why we played it. It bored me to play. It bores me to listen to it. It is remarkably, for a song that's really quite short, it's remarkably repetitive. And let's do that again, and again, and again, and again. And Bill Ward is the MVP of this album because Simon has said so, and Simon must be correct. But he plays the same fills just over and over and over on this song. I think that Geezer Butler sounds bored. I mean, thankfully the guitar solo comes in and goes,
it's not a bad guitar solo. It's not a bad solo.
We're all good here, guys. There's something worth waiting for. I don't like Paranoid. I don't hate it. That would be way too strong. But it is one of those songs that if I am at something and oh, you'll like this, it's heavy metal, I put on. Oh. But there you go. So yeah, not the finest moment in the Sabbath catalogue or even on this album. And there we go. I'm completely agreeing with Simon here. From here on in, it's all a win for me. From here on in, I'm done with things that I don't like. Number 6 is Electric Funeral. I mean, it's such a doom-laden track. I mean, Geezer's just hammering it home on the bass, but there's loads of room for guitar, kind of not histrionics, but there's a maelstrom. There's real energy and intent, but there's loads of colour in there as well. It's a really cleverly constructed song. It's pretty simple stuff, but it's really impactful. And if you crank it up, it is absolutely mighty indeed. So yeah, I mean, I'm now. It's all a win from here on in for me.
Yeah, I mean, this album changed my life, but it's not my favorite Black Sabbath album. I still will always remain loyal to the original Ozzy era as my number 1, but I love all eras of Sabbath, obviously. But I wore this album out in like the late 70s, early 80s, to the point where I went years without listening to this again because I didn't need to. I'd heard it so many times. So it's been interesting going back and kind of thinking about it from a song perspective and what are my favorites and how I would rank them. And again, and I know people there's certain people that hate to hear this, but sometimes when you hear stuff too much over time, it drops down for you. It just does. People will argue that, well, if it's a great song, it'll always be a great song and I'll always love it forever. It's like, well, if you've heard it a million times, it's just like, you eat, I don't know, you eat the same kind of pizza for years in a row and you get sick of it, right? Anything. So, for me, this album just doesn't, I'd much rather, Volume 4, Master Reality, Bloody Sabbath, Sabotage. I mean, those to me are still really fresh. I can listen to them any day. Paranoid, I don't listen to as much anymore. But this was an interesting exercise. So for me, number 8 is a song that I never really dug that much on this album. I can see why a lot of people really like it, because it's really different for them, and it's Planet Caravan. It's druggy, it's psychedelic, and it's just, the guitar solo is cool because it's jazz. It's just Tony playing jazz, but I don't know. I don't really ever need to hear Planet Caravan, but I can appreciate why people like it. Number 7 is Paranoid. I was never a fan of Paranoid. There seems to be this thing with many Sabbath fans. It's like if you're a Sabbath fan, you have to love Paranoid. I don't have to love anything. It's like I don't hate it, but even when I was first exposed to this album, you know what I liked about Paranoid? It's the fact that I had just started playing guitar, and it's the one song I could learn really, really quickly, very, very fast, right off the bat. And it's just like, and after you've heard the story about how fast they put it together in the studio, and Steven, you hit the nail on the head. It's so repetitive, the whole song. So basically, what they did was they took a little part they created and they extended it to 3.5 minutes or whatever the hell it is, and there's your song. I don't hate it. I never need to hear it again. I don't know why it's the big phenomenon out of all Sabbath songs. I really don't know, but it's catchy. The guitar solo is cool. It is what it is. But to me, it's like one of my least favorite of the more notable Black Sabbath songs. That's number 7. Number 6 is Rat Salad. Interesting how this band just did this instrumental on their second album, and then basically just, other than little Iommi things here and there on a couple of the early albums, they basically were done with instrumentals for the rest of their career. I don't mind Rat Salad. I think the drumming is terrific, and I think the riffs are really cool. But yeah, it does feel a little unfinished. But it's kind of cool where it's placed on the album, and I think to me, Paranoid isn't complete without that. So yeah, it's not great. It's certainly pretty cool. From here on in, everything to me is outstanding. So back to Simon.
Okay, so seeing as I've got to appropriate numbers to these, my 5 is The Electric Funeral and my 4 is Hand of Doom. These are phenomenally heavy, both musically and lyrically, and you could make the argument like they're the most important songs on the album, because there are so many bands that obviously thought, "Fuck, that's heavy, we can do that," and then suddenly Doom exists. Now, it's not a genre I can get my shit together with, really, because I'm all about the funsies. But you can absolutely see a through line 50 years ago to stuff that's going on and has been going on. I recently went on a Sirith Ungol kick, and
Big band.
yeah, hoovered up all their reissues and stuff, and you can just see that they were sat there taking notes, as was so many other ones. But anyhow, lyrically, it's an absolute laugh riot, these 2 songs, aren't they? It's comedy, absolute comedy genius. I don't mean that. It's just like when you actually listen to them, you think, "Oh my God, the world's coming to an end." Yeah, and you think back to they're coming out of the '60s and all that, Summer of Love, and then here come the Sabs, ready to cheer you
Drug
up.
abuse, Vietnam War. Yeah, it's like down and depressing shit, right? Yeah.
That's robots' minds, robot slaves, lead them to atomic rage. And it's all that kind of like, certainly in the UK, that kind of like post-war kind of angst going on, leading towards mutually assured destruction. The world's going to hell in a handcuff, and the Sabs just encapsulated that, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, Ozzy, as I think I'm on record of saying, But he just couldn't relate to that kind of 60s summer of love and flowers in your hair and all this sort of stuff. I mean, I don't know where I read this, but he was talking about, like, you know, San Francisco. I said, what the fuck is that? It's just the whole scene just didn't represent what life was to them whatsoever. So this was their response. And you hear that, it makes total
Geezer,
sense.
I mean, Geezer just with his lyrics early on were just like so different than what most other bands were doing at the time.
Yeah. What did I write down? Push the needle in, face death's sickly grin, holes are in your skin. It's not exactly Andy Williams. It's not Love Story, is it?
No, not really.
Yeah, I put that one slightly higher up because I like the slow, fast nature of the song. But just I foolishly took a walk. I think it was last night in the dark, listening to this. Oh Christ! Yeah, it's still 50 years later, isn't it? Because, you know, I'm going to go on, when I go on to do my top two, I'm going to say, you know, these are so ubiquitous and you find them everywhere. But, you know, the power to be still like, whoa, I don't want to go down that street. It's a bit dark because I'm listening to Black Sabbath. It's still there. You know, just help. But yeah, anyway, my number three is Paranoid. I am very happy to have Paranoid up there. It comes in, it does what it says, it fucks off. However, it's a really kind of important song in the UK because it absolutely, along with Ace of Spades, kind of like personifies the genre for the normal people here in the UK. And yet, and here's the best bit, Paranoid and Ace of Spades are nowhere near even in the ballpark of the best songs of those bands.
Absolutely.
Not even close. And yet, you know, they are the songs that everybody knows. My mum would have known Paranoid, you know. Mrs. Simon knows Paranoid. You know, everybody knows Paranoid. And you know what? There are many worse things that people could know than that. How long is it? Not very long, you know, stuff. And also, I do remember seeing the video for the first time and thinking, ooh, fractal images, whoa, they're so scary in front of that stuff. That's not really very scary. But yeah, I'm happy with that being part of both metal DNA and the UK DNA. It's perfectly fine by me. So those are my 5, 4, and 3.
Well, for the record, no pun intended.
Oh,
somebody will point out below that Paranoid is 2 minutes and 45 seconds.
Okay, so I was even making it longer. Yes, yeah, doesn't need to be longer.
So yeah, it feels longer to me now. It probably didn't when I first heard it the first 100 times or so.
Exactly.
So yeah, my number 5, Hand of Doom, and I mean Simon really has stolen my thunder here because for one of the album's more ignored tracks, this is not a track that people talk about very much. It's not a celebrated track from the Sabbath catalogue in the wider sense. You can feel the influence, I would say, on literally hundreds of heavy metal songs that have followed. It is just those big hammering grooves, the tumbling drums, the despairing vocals, and then it's all countered by something that's up-tempo. There's a release there. It's still kind of foreboding and uncompromising, and it really did set a template that so many bands have really created an entire catalogue of. And that, it wasn't like, you know, fitting things together back then. This was the first time that this kind of stuff was really being put out there by anybody. So it's easy to kind of go, yeah, it's number 5, it's Hand of Doom. But when you look at the bigger picture, you kind of go, wow, yeah, it's really, really important. It's massive. Without it, I mean, where would we be? Who knows? It's really quite interesting to go back and listen to this album and see, and not just this album. There's a kind of 3 or 4 album run from Sabbath at this point that has just set the template for so many bands.
Yeah.
But Ozzy sells the lyrics here. This is not my favourite Ozzy vocal album, Sabbath. I don't think he's as good right across this album as he is on some of the others. I think he's great on Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I absolutely love his delivery there. He really sells that album for me. Just so good. But he's always on the edge of losing it on Hand of Doom. I really like that. But he's also still in control. His voice was a weapon at this point. you know, and he seemed to know how to use it, when to really go for the throat, when to pull it all back. The only kind of niggle here for me is that the guitar solo is probably one of my personal least favourites on the album. There's nothing wrong with it. It works for the song, but everything else around it is pretty magnificent. Number 4 for me is I Am Iron Man. It's mean and it's menacing and it's thundering. And I mean, Bill Ward's drumming it in the final third of that song, those kind of near tribal beats that are just, oh, it just picks you up and you're just carried away with it. It's fantastic. And it's those types of payoffs that make the slow, kind of more lumbering main riffs in some of these songs just so much more intense. It would be easy just to do that for the whole album. It's clever not to, though, because it makes everything much more impactful. I personally find live versions of this song more to my taste. I think there's a bit more vibrancy about them, but this is still really exciting stuff. And you can understand why people were utterly knocked sideways by this kind of thing back in 1970. It's intense, it's memorable, and it's really quite masterfully constructed. It's really well thought through music. Sabbathers sometimes look back on now as a bit kind of workman-like at certain points. Go listen to it properly. It's really not that at all. There's a lot of craft going on here. And on that note, number 3 for me is Planet Caravan. You kind of said it with Rat Salad, Peter. For me, side 1, War Pigs, it's intense. It's an intense song, you know? Paranoid, it's absolutely full on. Iron Man, it's big and it's lumbering. Planet Caravan coming in at song 3 in between all of that. To me, it's perfect. It just gives everything a place. It gives you a second to breathe on its own. If you just play that song, yeah, it's okay. But to me, putting it in where it is on side 1 makes it nigh on perfect. It's atmospheric. There's loads of hand percussion, and I just love the restrained guitars on it. It's so atypical for everything else that's there on it. And Ozzy's voice, which is obviously got loads of effects on it and various things like that, just feels otherworldly to me. And the clean guitar work from Iommi,
it's great. Yeah.
It's off the charts for me. And yeah, it's not a song that I would necessarily think, oh, must listen to some Sabbath. Let's go and get Planet Caravan on. But in the context of this album, ranking the songs as an album, I think the album is better for having Planet Caravan on it. So that's my number 3.
That's a good point. That's a good point. My number 5 is Electric Funeral. Wow, 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 wow. I find that the deep cuts on this album are just terrific. Like Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, Fairies Wear Boots. I mean, they're so good. That's my number 5. I love Electric Funeral. My number 5 and number 4, they're kind of interchangeable here. They're both so good. Hand of Doom is number 4 for me. And I remember back in the day, because when you're a kid, I was a kid listening to this. I was like 12, 13 years old. And I, of course, gravitated towards the popular songs, right? That's, War Pigs, Iron Man, Paranoid, Fairies Wear Boots. And I remember in the beginning, I kind of like, Hand of Doom, it's really slow, kind of creepy. The lyrics are like really depressing and just kind of like, And I remember for a couple of years, I kind of like, I didn't listen to that song too much. And then like as the 80s wore on, I was kind of like, Hand of Doom's like one of the fucking best songs on this album. It's like really, really good. And it's like, and it really, Hand of Doom, totally, this whole album, but really influenced a lot of those Doom bands that came much later on, who really did that slow and menacing type of thing. And that's what this song is all about. It's just absolutely terrific. Number 3 was probably my favorite song on the album back 45 years ago. And I still really like it. I don't need to listen to it that often, but Steven, you hit the nail on the head. Iron Man is so well constructed. All the changes, there's literally like little movements within that whole song, and they're all brilliant. The riff is tremendous. It's one of the all-time greats. Ozzy's vocals are tremendous on here. The guitar solo is tremendous. That drum salvo towards the end is tremendous. The way the ebbs and flows all throughout the second half of the song, the whole second half of the song is amazing. Probably my favorite part of the song. And again, I've heard it a million times, so I don't reach for Iron Man all that often. Although ironically, after we get done with this video, I have to go drive out to go pick something up. And you know what's coming in the car with me? This, and I'm going to listen to Iron Man on my drive to the restaurant to pick up some dinner that I ordered. But yeah, so that's my number 3, Iron Man.
Okay, that's my number 2. I really like Iron Man, but still, every time I listen to it, when it says "I am Iron Man" at the start, I always snigger. You always think, "Oh, really? Are you? Oh, bless." But the rest of it is just like phenomenally good. It's big riffs, big everything, big guitars. The guitars sound like drums or something. You feel like you're really under attack. It's just so heavy. The drums are so great. Steven, you stole my thunder. The drums are just so great on that. They really are. It kind of makes you think, why were you so horrible to Bill recently? Why have you not been nice to him this century? Stop it.
One of the big mysteries of the world, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, be nice to Bill. Be like Bill. That sort of thing. Yeah, it's just phenomenally heavy. But my one's War Pigs. I like a nice lyric. I like a nice rhyme. Masses, that'll do for me.
Those generals gathering and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, but if you want to rhyme the
Satan
same word,
laughing spreads his wings. Oh yeah,
go for it. But it's just so intense, isn't it? What an intense song it is. And and I know that these two are other than Paranoid, the ones that everybody knows, the ones that are all around popular culture. But do you know why that is? It's because they're so good. That's the basic shit. The cream rises to the top, doesn't it, as they say? And War Pigs frightened me when I was little. It frightened me last night. It's just bam! What a great way to start a record. I've been thinking about this a lot. Maybe one of the things I've never really gone back to this for donkey's years is because it starts off with the best one for me. And then everything else is just a little tear downwards. Maybe that's got something to do with it. That's the only thing I can think of, because I have neglected this album for about 30 years. Probably, if the UK Connection gets renewed for a new series, carry on to neglect it because got other shit to do. But other than Planet Caravan and Rat Salad, what an excellent EP this is.
Nice way to put it. I'm just happy you like the majority of it. That's great. I was expecting this to be a kind of a repeat of the Zeppelin 4. That's good. That's good.
I tried to keep an open mind, although apparently I didn't with Led Zeppelin 4. But yeah.
Cool.
You don't like it. I'm okay with that. I don't have anyone with a problem with people not liking things.
I have got hundreds of records that I've bought. Give a quick couple of listens to it, and then thought, off you go, bye, go on, off you go, and happy to investigate further. But it's not my turn next. But yeah, Stephen, your top 2.
Okay, so my number 2 is Fairies Wear Boots. I mean, this might just be the groove to end all grooves. Do you know? I mean, I've already said that the Aussie era of Sabbath isn't my favourite. But you listen to this album, and I can understand how at the time, although obviously the breakup's a little way away here at this stage, how people looked at this lineup and thought, how could you take one of these 4 out and this would still work? Because you listen to a song like this, and there are long instrumental sections in Fairies Wear Boots, but it's the equal sum of 4 parts. Bass work is huge. It carries everything along. The guitars just cut through, and it's all elevated through the main riff. The drums, they catch rear without having to dominate anything. It still kind of underpins everything that's going on and gives it that solid bass. And they steal the limelight for a few seconds, the drums, but then Bill backs off again. It's really, really tastefully done. But then when you add in Ozzy's unmistakably urgent vocals, and it's the perfect blend. And as I said, I mean, whichever era I prefer or I don't. You listen to this and you think, if I was listening to this album at the time, I probably sit in my bedroom back all these years ago going, wow, I hope one of these guys doesn't leave because that's the end. Has to be the end. Because you listen to this song and you think, well, who else could do this?
Yeah.
And I suppose credit to the three guys that remained and Mr. Dio for coming in and doing something actually that was different.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to do any of this kind of stuff again. But yeah, Fairies Wear Boots, love it. Yes, it was a grower. I would agree with that, actually. It's not when I first heard this album, that's not the song that you thought, oh, I love that song. But now, there's so much depth and so much going on. Really, really love it. And yeah, I'm going to be Mr. Obvious as well. Number one, it's War Pigs. I mean, what a song. I mean, the guitar playing throughout is still dazzling to this day. It was genuinely innovative back when this was recorded. And it really is. Same again, this is a band coming together and locking together to build a song. It's not about individuals. It's about the song. The lyrics are clever. And I mean, Geezer Butler had such a great eye for a really great, memorable line. And Ozzy with the vocal melodies, it just all works. It probably makes it, although, and I know that Geezer wrote these and he wasn't about in certain eras of certain things, but to hear Ozzy sing a song like this and then remind yourself that this is the guy that asked us who did he need on the bloody case. Yes, he needs Perry Bloody Mason. And you just, oh, how can that guy be that guy? But anyway, it's the way they shift up and down through the gears, the changes of paces, and it starts and it stops, and there's moments that are really simple, and it heads off at a tangent again. And the guitar work as this song heads towards its crescendo is absolutely breathtaking. And it makes it all the more annoying that it decides to end the song. Why did they do that? Yeah. It's such a great song, and you can hear it's building to a great end. And then, apart from that, I love it.
It's a great point. Yeah.
Every single time out of the hundreds of times I've heard that song, I always, why? Why did they do it? Adds absolutely nothing to it. Nothing.
Yeah. Well, Steven, I'm going to echo you here. My number two is Whoa Right Now. Fairies Wear Boots is amazing. Amazing. And again, the last song on the album, and again, if I'm going back 45 years to when I first got into this album, I really like Fairies Wear Boots, but because it was so deep in the album, I paid more attention to everything else that came before it. And then as the years kind of went by, I was like, oh, that's the gem all the way at the end. And really, when you think about it, this album, sometimes I think of albums like a really good sandwich, right? A really good sandwich has to have great bread, and all the stuff in the middle's got to be top notch, right? It's got to have great bread. Because you ever have a sandwich that has horrible bread, even though all the stuff in the middle, the meats and cheeses, the vegetables are really, really good, and the bread sucks, sandwich kind of suffers, right? Got to have good bread. Well, let me tell you something. The 2 slices of bread on this album, fucking great. Because let me tell you something, War Pigs is a classic. And out of the 3 like big songs from this album, I never need to hear Paranoid again. If I never hear it again, I'm okay with it. I don't hate it, but I've heard it way too many times. Iron Man, I'm good with every so often, and I'm going to listen to it in about 15 minutes. But War Pigs, I could listen to every day and never get tired of it. It's so good. It's heavy. It's menacing. The riffs are terrific. The guitar soloing and all the different passages are great. The drums are great. Ozzy's vocals are great. The lyrics are really cool for the time. And it's really quite intricate the way it's kind of set up, right? I mean, all the different passages, how they're kind of put together is very, very intricate. There's lots of changes going on, and very, very mature for this young Black Sabbath band, I think, who would go off and do all sorts of kind of complicated stuff later on, and they weren't all about just bulldozing you with big, heavy riffs. So yeah, War Pigs is without a doubt one of their all-time great songs, without a doubt. And there's a reason, you know, Simon said it perfectly before. It's like there's a reason why some of these songs are still beloved, you know, 50 some odd years later. It's because the cream does rise to the top. And yeah, War Pigs has been a part of basically every Black Sabbath concert since this album. How could you have a Black Sabbath concert without playing War Pigs? You can't do it. Got to play War Pigs. Got to play Iron Man. Got to play Paranoid.
That's the rules.
Yeah.
That's the rules.
Yep.
We do have to mention how bad that looks.
Oh, it's terrible.
I mean,
well, because this was actually going to be called War Pigs. This album was going to be called War Pig, but they decided against that. And
I mean, in recent times, I have lambasted quite a lot of album covers. But considering how important, how seminal this album has become, I mean, this is a shockingly bad cover.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bad idea, poorly executed, really bad colours. The logo and the font are atrociously bad. There's nothing about this that is vaguely redeeming. Nothing. It is just.
Don't they look cool either?
That should have been the album cover. That should have been the album cover. Never mind the whole pink here, but yeah.
They look really cool. Though.
Yes, I do absolutely. And at least nobody's wearing tights on that shot.
Can I just posit that we were talking about Roger Bain earlier, and what this record is really primitive. It's a really primitive kind of record, isn't it? But then 4 years later, is with the Priest, and he's still making it sound like it cost about 12 pence.
Yeah,
that's not really what the Priest required.
Yes. Yeah. There's a very. You take Martin Birch, for example. There was a producer who could fit his style into different bands and pull the best out of what those bands were. Whereas it would appear that Roger Bain's idea was pretty much, let's bang it out, lads. It really works here. I think the production works in favour of this album because it is, well, simplistic, but it's rough around the edges. It's foreboding. It's gritty. It's dark. It's dirty. It's everything this album is.
Yeah.
But you take that to rock and roll and you think, oh, well, thanks.
But, you look at it, though, could they have done, they worked with him for their first couple of albums, how much longer were they going to continue to work with the same producer, right? So for Volume 4, they decided we're going to do it ourselves, right? And they work with various producers after that. So it's like, at some point, I think the bands want to kind of move in other directions, and they realize this producer is only going to do this for us. But meanwhile, those first 3 Sabbath albums, those are great, right? And they're from an era, and they have a certain sound. And Volume 4 doesn't sound like Master of Reality. Sabbath Bloody Sabbath doesn't sound like Volume 4. Sabotage doesn't sound like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Technical Ecstasy, Never Say Die sound totally different. So, looking back, probably a good idea, I guess. But could you just imagine the whole what if scenario? What if, Roger Bain worked with them for 2 or 3 or 4 more albums?
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, Sabbath becomes one note, right?
Yep.
You don't have all this variety and all this experimentation of Volume 4 and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath and Sabotage. So, I don't know. I'm a firm believer of it's always cool to look at the what if scenarios, but sometimes things happen for a reason, and you can't go back and change history. So, as much as I think that the first 3 Sabbath albums are such sledgehammers and they're great. My favorite is Volume 4, right? And we probably wouldn't have got Volume 4 exactly as is if they would have stayed with the status quo.
No, I think it actually could have been vastly different.
Yeah.
Because it's a much more sophisticated album.
Yeah.
Much more sophisticated. The base is still exactly the same, but the execution is much more sophisticated. There's no way it would have been the album that it was, or that they would then have gone where they did, because it all starts to evolve from there. I've always kind of viewed the first 3 as they're connected. Yes, there's evolution. Yes, there's growth, but it is definitely a band that have already found their feet. Then they grow from there.
Yeah.
So that's not to slight the first 3 I made. The first 3 are tremendous.
Not at all. Yep. So I'm gonna put Simon on the spot right now. I know what his answer is going to be. So Simon, you ready to do in about a month's time? You ready to do a favorite, least favorite Black Sabbath episode?
In a month.
Yeah.
This and a couple of Dio era.
That's what I figured. I'm just pulling your leg. I know that's.
In a year, maybe.
There you go. No problem.
It's quite a lot to digest, to be fair, if you don't have it all.
So we are actually
watching for the win.
There you go. Yes, this was great. This was good. I like I said, I'm very happy that you actually found some love in this music. So that's a good thing. It's a good thing because this was a good one for me. So originally we were not going to have an episode a week from today because, as many people know, I am going to be traveling for business for a few days, and I was kind of thinking, God, how am I going to listen to stuff, whatever. But we figured out that we will make it happen. So I will be doing some homework while I am away in Washington, D.C. for a few days. And Steven, you want to tell us what everybody's in store for next week as we travel back to AOR Melodic Rockville?
Yes, so we are sticking with the theme of 3 albums. One is generally perceived as a classic, and we have gone for the self-titled Bad English supergroup debut from 1989 for that one. For the underground classic, we've gone for a band and an album that have been requested a few times in the comments, which is from a year before. It's Out of the Silence by Dare, a UK band. Just putting that out there now, not giving the game away. And we have gone for the Made an AOR album choice. This was one that Simon has come up with, and I have never heard this in my life. I'm very much looking forward to getting to know Premonition by Peter Frampton from 1986. So that's what you can expect next week.
Cool. So tune in then a week from today. Same bat time, same bat channel. Throw a little comic book user stuff at you right here, because anyway. So thanks for watching, everybody. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. Before we go, make sure down in the comments below, down there somewhere, Steven, right below where you are. Yeah, there you go. Rank these songs in the order that you love them or dislike them or hate them, whatever. I don't know. Rank them as you like them, 1 through 8. It'll be interesting to see how people kind of figure this whole thing out. So, because it's an interesting album with some really cool songs. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the comments. So, till next week, for Simon Bray and Steven Reid, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll see you tomorrow on Ranking the Albums. Take care. Bye-bye.